Hello again, this is Chris Ralph with a further little update. It's now the 22nd of June 2016, almost 3 weeks since I made my first diary entry. And all of the talk, of course, today in Britain is about whether Britain will vote tomorrow to stay in the European Union or vote after, 40-something years of being in the EU to leave it through the so-called Brexit or Britain exit vote. For me, of course, I have another decision to make. Will I tell the stake president, no, I will not resign, won't accept his invitation, or will I accept his offer and vote after 45 years as a member of the LDS Church for a Chrexit or Chrexit decision? Quite interesting that there are these parallels going on for me at this time, just at the same time as Britain is also taking quite a major decision. Well, as for the Chrexit vote, I think my mind is more or less made up, and so I've written today to the stake president a rather lengthy letter, which I may share in full on my Journey of Loyal Dissent blog at some point, actually. But I have stopped short of giving him a final answer just for now. And that's because my dear old dad, Ted Ralph, some of you may have come across him as he also wrote an open letter to the Europe Area Presidency a while back, which of course was never acknowledged. My dear old dad, Ted Ralph, a living legend if ever there was one, asked me a question which I felt I should ask the stake president before delivering my final decision. And I'm going to read part of my letter to the stake president, which will explain. Right, this is it. Before I embark upon the main business, this is my letter to the stake president, by the way. Before I embark upon the main business of responding to your letter, perhaps I could first report a rather significant discussion I had with my father following receipt of your invitation to resign. He asked whether formal church discipline would be automatically triggered in the event that I decline. He wanted, in other words, to ascertain whether you are asking me to jump before I am pushed. My opinion, based on recent experiences of various others, was that I am likely to become a further example of the general purge which is being carried out against those who openly dissent, and that you are perhaps offering me what you see as an easier way out, possibly to spare the feelings of my family, and also yourself the challenge of having to administer disciplinary proceedings. I told him only you could really answer his question. Perhaps, therefore, you would clarify whether your invitation was without strings attached or, as I surmise, was a precursor of formal action should I decline. Either way, Dad concluded that as he openly endorses all I have published, then presumably he too might soon expect to find himself in the same position as me, whatever that turns out to be. As you probably know, he turns 93 in 3 months' time and is a veteran of the Second World War. He saw active service in North Africa during that conflict, believing at the time that he was placing his life on the line in order to defend freedom of thought and speech, and of course he has been honoured several times at church for his service to the cause of liberty. The irony of this current situation is therefore not lost upon him, and he is considering whether to make a public statement to that effect to augment my own online diary. Well, my dad is actually ticking over this matter, rather unlike him really, as he's very easygoing normally, very mild-mannered sort of person usually, and he has indeed recorded a few thoughts which I'm going to share. This was him speaking earlier today.
Well, I think Chris was exactly right to ask the questions he did. When he began to discover we'd all been told fairy tales about early Mormon history, he felt he couldn't sit on his hands and say nothing. The bishop wanted him to keep quiet about it, but Chris isn't that sort. So he asked questions instead of about why the real history wasn't being told. The local leaders were all pretty clueless and couldn't come up with any sensible answers. So then he wrote to the general authorities, but they didn't have the courage to acknowledge his letters. They didn't respond to mine either. Maybe they felt it was beneath their dignity. What we now realise is that supporting the truth seems to be of secondary concern to them, and anyone who asks questions which might cast doubt on the Church's authenticity is called an apostate. Apostasy might be their word for advocate of accurate history, but I called it integrity. And because Chris has shown that kind of integrity, his reputation has now come under threat from church leaders. In fact, he's been asked to resign. I think the leaders of the church should all feel embarrassed and ashamed. They're trying to stifle free thought and speech in this way. It's cowardly and dishonest in my view. I endorse 100% what Chris has written in an effort to promote truth. If his actions are so troubling to the men at the top of the tree, then perhaps they should examine themselves and their motives. Why would they want to stop people from finding out? So I stand firmly with my son, not because he's my son, but because he ought to be allowed to speak up. I wish more people would have the guts to do this. People should never be afraid to challenge cover-ups and deception. And maybe now I've said that publicly, they will be brave and righteous enough to try to silence or expel me too. I'm sad to say, this is not the benign church I was led to believe that I joined several decades ago. In my case, I'm old enough to remember the darkest days of the Second World War. I signed up as a 19-year-old to participate in it, hoping to protect our liberties so that ruthless dictators might be prevented from trampling the rights of ordinary people. We all recognise today, I think, that Hitler was a power-hungry madman and a curse to the free world, and he had to be stopped. He dealt all the time in lies and propaganda, but at least he didn't pretend to be on God's errand. If telling the truth is apostasy, then I'm proud to be numbered with the apostates. In my opinion, the real apostate of this age are those who allow so many lies to be told in God's name each week without any twinges of conscience. Don't they think they'll be held accountable in the end? I believe they will be. Anyway, I'll let everyone know when I also receive my personal invitation to resign. This is Ted signing off and wishing truth seekers everywhere my best.
So there you have it. Will they take a nonagenarian on as well? Is Brexit or Chrexit or even Texit on the cards? All will be revealed, no doubt, in the next bulletin. Until then, be brave and place your trust in truth. It's all that we have.